Okay, so we were discussing in the last class about the various applications of restriction enzymes, and I told you that they can be used for gene cloning, they can be used for restriction fragment length polymorphism, which in turn is used for DNA fingerprinting as well. And then you can also do restriction mapping, and we discussed that you can use restriction enzymes to prepare a restriction map of small plasmids, right? So I hope this part was clear to everyone. And then we started with the topic that how to isolate the gene from a genomic DNA when the sequence information is not there. You remember that? Are you need to speak up, otherwise I would not know whether you people are following or no, or whether you people can hear me or no.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, good.
No, we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so then the point is, when we want to isolate the gene from the genomic DNA, I told you that we can use a 6 base pair cutter, remember? Or you can use 4 base pair cutter. So these are restriction enzymes which cut after every, which recognize 4 base pair sequence or which recognize 6 base pair sequence, and therefore the cutting will be in case of 4 base pair cutter after every 256 bases, and in case of 6 base pair cutter it will be after every 4096 bases, right? And that too when the GC content is 50%. You remember that? Then I also told you that we can, instead of performing complete digestion, we can do partial digestion from the last class. So the idea of partial digestion is clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then we do partial digestion with, for example, 4 5 enzymes. So let's say we digest it with ND1, we digest it with EcoR1, we digest it, for example, digest it with Hindi3. Doing the partial digestion, what you will do is you will run it on a gel, right? So you will perform Akerose gel. You do Akerose gel electrophoresis class, then are we going to see discrete bands? Hmm? You need to speak up. Are we going to see discrete bands if the genomic DNA is digested with any of these enzymes?
No, ma'am.
No,
Yes.
ma'am.
Smear.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So you are going to see a smear of bands, right? Now what will happen is, if it is a smear of bands, so then the next question is how to identify which band, or actually which fragment, which DNA fragment contains the gene of interest, right? So is used is class called techniques, which was discovered by a scientist called E.M. Southern. So nowadays people use different techniques as well, but then this is one of the oldest techniques, and still I would say one of the most reliable techniques. So the technique was named as Southern blotting because um, of the name of the scientist called E.M. Southern, who discovered the technique. But in general, when we say blotting, what is blotting? What the English meaning of blotting would tell you? अरे फिर सारे चुप हो गए, दीपक, ध्वनि. Blotting would mean what? Just go by the English meaning, don't have to worry about the science. The reason I'm trying to tell you is because then it will be easy to remember.
Blotting is basically like spotting something on another surface.
Right, and on another surface. So for example, blotting sheets are used when you want to soak something, right? Many a times. So here what is done is that the DNA is transferred to a membrane, and this transfer of membrane, this process is actually called blotting. And when it is the transfer of DNA, the technique is called as southern blotting. When it is the transfer of RNA class, the technique is called northern blotting. And when it is the transfer of protein class, the technique is called as western blotting. So blotting in general by definition means transfer. So when it is transfer of DNA to a membrane, then it is southern blotting. When it is transfer of RNA to a membrane, then it is called northern blotting. And when it is transfer of protein to a membrane, then it is called western blotting. Now the question is, why do we need to transfer the DNA? We need to transfer the DNA or RNA or proteins. What's the purpose? So the answer is we need to transfer the DNA, RNA or proteins onto the membrane is for the detection purposes. Let me tell you what do we mean by detection purposes. Detection purposes means, for example, like you want to identify the gene of interest. So to identify the gene of interest, let's discuss in detail what do we do in southern blotting, and then using the same logic, northern blotting would be done, and using the same logic, western blotting is done with slight changes. So let's first understand how do we do southern blotting. And why do we do southern blotting? So the reason why do we do southern blotting is to isolate the gene, to identify the desired gene which you are looking for, because the strain is not sequenced and you want to identify your desired gene. So just for the ease of, just for the simplicity, we can take the gene for green fluorescence protein, or you can take another gene, for example the gene for amylase or beta galactosidase. So these are enzymes. You can take any of these genes. So let us imagine that you have a chromosomal DNA for green fluorescence protein. The gene for green fluorescence protein was discovered in jellyfish. uh, or you can take, for example, in case of alpha amylase or beta galactosidase, you can take the example of E. coli, is beta galactosidase positive, or bacillus or any other strain. Now, we do not know where exactly the gene for green fluorescence protein or alpha amylase or beta galactosidase is located in the chromosome. So what we are going to do is, if I write all the steps, what we are going to do is, we are going to start with isolation. So isolate the genomic DNA. The next step is digest the genomic DNA. 6 base pair. We are going to do partial digestion. Followed by agarose gel electrophoresis. This part you need to listen carefully. Once you do agarose gel electrophoresis, it's the double-stranded DNA which is separated in the agarose gel electrophoresis, because when you have isolated the DNA, when you have digested the DNA is double-stranded. So what do we do next? We do, in fact, there are 2 steps. One is called deep urination. So sometimes we do deep urination, but this is usually an optional step. And then this will be followed by denaturation. So what do we do is that we soak the gel run after Agarose gel electrophoresis. After completion of Agarose gel electrophoresis, you soak the gel in an alkaline solution which contains sodium hydroxide at a pH of around 11. So as a result of this, and this soaking you need to do easily for about an hour, about 1 hour. Now as a result of this, the DNA gets denatured. Okay. Now what you do is you put it in a neutralization solution. So all these solutions, they contain buffer which is usually called SSC. SSC is sodium chloride and sodium citrate. Sometimes sodium chloride, sodium phosphate and EDTA are also used. So and then
Mom, just a second, like what is this deep urination?
Yeah, so deep urination is an optional step. So this is used when the DNA fragments are really large. So for this purpose, so deep urination, as the name itself says, it removes purines selectively. So what happens is that when you treat your gel with hydrochloric acid, so deep urination is done in an acidic solution, right, with a lower pH. So during this process, and this is done for like half an hour, the easiest way to find out that deep urination is successful is you will find that during the deep urination the blue dye, the bromophenol blue, would change its color. It would become yellow, and when you will put it in denaturation solution, it will again become blue. So deep urination is done, its removal of purines, and it is selectively done for when your fragment of interest or gene of interest is really larger in size. That means above 2 kb or 3 kb. But for, so that's why it's an optional step. But for smaller genes, I think you can straight away go to denaturation solution followed by a neutralization solution. The purpose of neutralization solution is only to make the pH neutral. And once you do that, class, then in fact what we do is a setup which is transfer of DNA. So the idea is, class, when we do the denaturation, so the DNA becomes denatured. So when we now transfer the DNA onto the membrane, then one of the strand gets transferred, right? So that is shown here. Because so the idea is, if the DNA is completely double stranded and if you allow it to transfer, then the transfer will not be possible. Point number one. Point number two, even if little bit of DNA will get transferred, then the next part is southern blotting ke baad you need to do hybridization. So for hybridization you need to have single stranded DNA, because this is going to be DNA hybridization, right? Is this making sense? Or maybe should I tell you about DNA hybridization first, maybe? Then the details of the process.
Ma'am,
Huh?
can you please describe what is the southern blotting? I didn't hear.
Okay. So maybe just hold on. We will revisit one more time. You listen to DNA hybridization first. So class, in southern blotting, after this step, this resulted in transfer of single-stranded DNA onto the membrane. Now what will happen is, there is a term, what we use is what is called as a probe. Okay, so by the name itself, by the English meaning, probe is something which can probe, right? Which can identify. You're getting this point? So in this case, let's say if I'm interested in identifying the gene for green fluorescence protein, or if I'm interested in identifying the gene for alpha amylase or beta galactosidase, then in this case, the probe is going to be a DNA fragment, the gene for or amylase or beta galactosidase from from literature, right? So that means this here you are presuming that these genes are already reported, and I'll be coming to the other possibility when you do not know. Okay, but let's first understand how it works. So when, for example, you are interested in identifying the gene for GFP or alpha amylase or beta galactosidase from an unknown organism whose sequence is not known, then what we do is we use the probe, which is actually a DNA fragment which contains these genes from known organisms, right? You got this point. So that means in literature there are strains where GFP has been reported. In literature, alpha amylase or beta galactosidase have already been reported. Sequence wise they could be completely different, but still there could be patches of sequence similarity. For southern blotting and hybridization, right? For southern 5 base pairs of sequence homology can be picked up. 25 base pairs or even more homology can be easily picked up. So in this case, what you are doing is you are taking a probe which is actually a DNA fragment which contains the desired gene, right? And what you do is you denature the probe. Before denaturing the probe is labeled with either a radioisotope or a fluorescent dye. And then what you do is you denature the probe. So as a result of it, what will happen is, just to give you the concept, you have single-stranded DNA on the membrane, right? As a result of blotting. Now what you do is you add probe, which is again because the probe is also denatured, so the probe is also single-stranded DNA, but labeled with radioisotope or fluorescent to allow them to hybridize. Now, class, this hybridization is usually performed at a temperature of 65 degrees. So now the question, I think this will answer the question that why we cannot use directly agarose gels. We cannot use agarose gels for hybridization because agarose gel will actually melt at 65 degrees, right? And when we do this hybridization, this is performed at 65 degrees, and this you do it for overnight. That means 12 to 16 hours. So what will happen is if we do not do this hybridization on a membrane, then the agarose gel will it will soften up and then it will melt finally. It cannot sustain 65 degrees and such long hours. So therefore what we do is we perform this hybridization onto a membrane. So is the concept clear, class? Then I will tell you the details.
Yes, ma'am. But how will they come at one place, like both their strands on a membrane?
Okay. So maybe I will tell you one more time. So what about others? Deepak, Vishant and Dhwani? Followed or
Ma'am,
no?
it's clear. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So so who would like to explain one more time, Deepak?
Ma'am, we first of all we in DNA hybridization we use probes, and
Yes.
and then what we does that we it will identify the desired gene that we want to isolate or identify isolate, and so then we perform southern blotting and hybridization.
Yes, very good. So now what's the purpose of southern blotting? I think that was the question of Ratnesh, right? So why do we do southern blotting? Why we cannot do it on the gel? Anybody?
Ma'am, can you briefly describe what is southern blotting? I
Yes,
didn't.
I will describe. I would like to know whether others have followed. Dhwani, Vishantan, would you like to try?
Yes, because for the hybridization, we need to maintain a temperature of 65 degrees Celsius for 6 to 12 hours, and agarose gel can't really sustain that temperature. Therefore, we need to do it on a membrane, and therefore southern blotting.
Right, but then maybe Dhwani, can you explain southern blotting, the process of southern blotting? So I think I'm on the same slide. You can take the help, and I will also help you. Or Ashi, would you like to try? Or Vishantan?
Ma'am, I can try.
Oh,
So basically, firstly, we isolate the genomic DNA and then we digest it using the 6 base pair or 4 base pair cutters. Here we ensure that it is partial digestion which is happening.
and why
Following
partial
this,
digestion?
when enzyme isn't completely allowed to digest the complete digestion doesn't occur and we get all possible fragments of the DNA.
And this will ensure what?
That we get all the possible fragments as in
Right. And this is done for what? I mean, why do
to
we
get the
do?
gene of interest.
Yes, yes, because you do not want that the gene gets cut with the enzyme.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay, good.
Following this, we go for agarose gel electrophoresis. And then the next step is depurination. So that depurination is done for genes that are greater than 2 kb size.
Right.
Um,
So in
After this, we move.
So Ashi, so in this case, it may be so many a times people are looking for one gene, or many a times people are looking for cluster of genes, right? 2, 3, 4 genes they want to fetch out together just to identify that 2 or 3 genes are present together. They are clustered together. So many a times people use these larger fragments for this purpose because usually most of the genes are within the range of 1 or 1.5 kb, but many a times people would like to see whether you have 3 genes and whether they are clustered together, they are present together. So in such cases the probe is usually like 2 kb or 3 kb fragment, and then in this case you would perform southern blotting and hybridization to identify not only the presence of the gene, not only for the isolation of the gene, but also to identify whether the 3 genes or 2 genes are present together in cluster. Yes, continue, Ashi.
Following this, we go for the denaturation of the protein, and after
Protein,
that, it
not
is
protein.
sorry of the gene. I'm sorry.
It's not DNA.
Uh,
What's the time?
yeah, we go for the DNA denaturation, and after this, we use the neutralization solution for maintaining the pH at 7.5, and then we transfer the single-stranded DNA on the membrane.
Yes, so this whole process. So southern blotting means transfer. So southern blotting means transfer of DNA, and I told you if it is DNA it is southern, if it is RNA it is northern, if it is protein it is western, right? But blotting in general means transfer. So transfer when we do in case of DNA it is single stranded DNA because you want to do hybridization. In case of RNA, it is again single stranded RNA. In case of protein, the entire protein is transferred, but in this case, the method of detection is different. So, so the technique in totality is called southern blotting and hybridization, or northern blotting and hybridization. So blotting itself only and only means transfer, but then this needs to be coupled with hybridization, which is a method of detection of the desired gene. Is it clear now, class?
Ma'am, but okay, it is clear. But my question was that on the membrane we have 2 single-stranded DNAs, right?
No,
And
no, you do not have 2 single-stranded DNA. What happens is that when you denature it, है ना? So when we soak it in denaturation solution, so the DNA gets denatured, right? And when this is denatured, it becomes single-stranded, and the I mean, because it is done in a glass tray and you soak it in this denaturation solution, so therefore only single-stranded DNA gets transferred because it is already denatured. You can actually confirm the transfer as well by observing it.
Ma'am, from solution we place all the single strands or just one of the single strand on the plate on the membrane.
No, so okay, so that comes to the next slide, which actually describes the process. But basic concept is clear, like what is happening and how are we detecting. That part is clear to everyone. Then I'll give you the details.
Yes, ma'am, it is clear.
Okay, so now let's see how exactly it is done. Then you will understand that why single-stranded DNA. I will make it big. Okay. So see from the top. So they have done restriction digestion. So what you are seeing is DNA restriction fragments, right? You do agarose gel electrophoresis and then fragments are separated by size. They have shown small clear bands, but in reality you will actually observe a smear. I will show you the real example in a second. Now, when we transfer this DNA onto the membrane glass, right? So this transfer is usually done by two methods. One is called capillary transfer and the second one is called electroblotting, which uses current, right? So this figure actually shows capillary transfer. So please see this figure carefully. I will make it further big. So what is done is, what you are seeing over here at the bottom is actually a glass tray. You can use even the horizontal gel apparatus assembly as well. If you are using a glass tray, you need to put a hard slab, something onto which you can keep the gel. If you are using the gel running horizontal gel assembly, then you can use directly the gel assembly, right? Now what you do is that you onto the gel assembly you place this paper, right? This is actually a filter paper. On both sides of the horizontal gel apparatus or on the glass tray, you actually fill it with a buffer, and this buffer is called as transfer buffer. Okay, now when we put this filter paper, right, when we put this filter paper, you need to ensure that both ends of the filter paper, right, both ends of the filter paper are soaked in the transfer buffer. Can you see that, class?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Should I use the... Okay. Now what you do is onto this filter
Now your
paper.
screen isn't visible. Okay, now it is.
Now it is okay. I was thinking just to explain you, maybe I can use the pointer. Okay. So see, this part and this part is filled with transfer buffer, right? And you imagine this is a glass tray or a horizontal gel assembly apparatus. The middle part uh, is a block onto which you place the gel, right? Before placing the gel, I told you are going to put a strip of filter paper, a broad strip of filter paper whose both ends are soaked in the transfer buffer, right? You can see that the
Yes,
ends are empty. Now onto this paper, what we do is we place the gel. Okay, this gel is usually placed upside down, right? That means the wells should be facing downwards. Onto the gel, what we place is the nitrocellulose membrane. Nitrocellulose membrane is the membrane which is used for transfer of DNA. You can also use nylon membrane as well. So both nitrocellulose and nylon membranes work equally efficiently for transfer of DNA. When we place this nitrocellulose or nylon membrane onto the gel, what you need to ensure is that there shouldn't be any air bubbles. So what we do is you can simply roll on the test tubes that you used in your biochemistry labs or chemistry labs. So you roll on the test tubes to remove all possible air bubbles. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to tell you is that all these are performed under cold conditions. It's good to perform the transfer process under cold conditions in a cold room at 4 degrees, because you do not want this transfer buffer to get evaporated. Okay, and this transfer is usually done overnight, so you need to maintain a good temperature so that this transfer is going to happen by capillary transfer. So all these membranes and paper towels will ultimately become wet because of the capillary action of the transfer buffer. Okay, so we were here. So onto the gel you place the nitrocellulose filter. Carefully remove the air bubbles with the test tube. The nitrocellulose filter paper is also soaked in transfer buffer before placing it onto the gel. Onto the nitrocellulose filter paper, we actually place Wattman 3mm filter paper, a few sheets, maybe 5 to 6 sheets. Onto those Wattman 3mm filter paper sheets, so these sheets are also soaked in transfer buffer. Now onto this we place paper towels. So these paper towels are like conventional blotting sheets, the blotting sheets that you might have used in your schools as well. So these are like the rough blotting sheets. So you layer like quite a thick paper towel, could I would say maybe up to 10 to 15 centimeters of width. Like these many sheets you need to place, and onto that you put a paper weight. This paper weight should be of the same size as that of the gel, and then you leave this assembly overnight. So as a result of this, the transfer buffer will help in the transfer of the DNA onto the nitrocellulose membrane by capillary transfer. In the morning, what you will find is all the paper towels, everything would be wet. Ultimately, when you will remove all of these, you will remove the weight, you will remove the paper towels, you will remove the nitrocellulose filter paper, you will find that the DNA has, so the best way is to, you can actually see it on the gel whether you see anything or no. If you see something with ethidium bromide, you will find that the intensity will be much less and the DNA will be actually transferred onto the nylon or nitrocellulose membrane. Now this nylon or nitrocellulose membrane, so the DNA is now you see here, so the nitrocellulose filter or nylon membrane now contains the desired DNA. This DNA, right? So this DNA can be detected by two methods. Number one, using radioactive probe, or number two, using fluorescently labeled probes. But the DNA which is transferred onto the membrane is not fixed. So when you will put the probe solution, the DNA is not bound to the membrane. It can just be removed. So therefore what is done is you just place the nitrocellulose or nylon membrane under UV. So this UV helps in actually binding the DNA onto the nitrocellulose or nylon membrane, and as a result of this the DNA gets stuck to the membrane, right? It is fixed onto the membrane. Now when it is fixed to the membrane, you can actually perform hybridization. So for this purpose, what is done is we first perform pre-hybridization. So pre-hybridization is kind of a method which allows unwanted regions to be blocked, right? And then you perform hybridization with the desired DNA probe. Once the hybridization is done, you perform 2 or 3 times washing. Once washing is done, if it is a radioactive probe, you can simply detect it using an X-ray film. You can develop an autoradiograph, right? If it is a fluorescence probe, then you can actually detect using a fluorescence-based equipment like a fluorimeter or something. So this whole process is the one which I showed you is done by capillary transfer, but exactly same process can be done by electrotransfer as well. When we do electrotransfer, what we do is we use an apparatus. We do not have to put so many paper towels. We do not have to put this paper weight because the transfer is going to be based upon voltage. So what we do is you just have the gel, you just have the nitrocellulose or nylon membrane and just a few paper towels, and then you connect it with, put it in a transfer buffer containing chamber, and then turn the current on, and then at around 200 milliamperes for about 1 hour you just proceed and you will find that the transfer is done. But the transfer using electro transfer method is efficient, people say, but then the capillary transfer is preferred for multiple reasons. One, because with capillary transfer, I mean the transfer, so even though they claim that electro transfer is efficient, but the only problem is that when we do electro transfer, a lot of heat is generated, and heat is not good for any of our biological macromolecules, whether it's DNA, whether it's RNA, or whether it's protein. So many a times there is no option and people end up doing electro transfer. But when they do electro transfer, then in this case you need to put something like an ice bag or uh, a dry ice pack in the transfer buffer, or dry ice pack in the big buffer containing chamber, so that the entire thing doesn't get heated up. With capillary transfer there is no worry that your DNA or RNA or protein or anything will get heated up, so that's why this is a preferred method. But people do use electroblotting, and these apparatuses are also available quite a lot. For proteins, we do have it in UG lab as well, but then we almost always require an ice bag or something. So is it clear, class? And this is how it would look like. So this is the gel. The smear that you are seeing is the DNA which is digested, right? The second gel is the one which shows after hybridization with the probe. So for example, wherever the probe has hybridized, you can see clear bands, right? So that means the desired gene is present here, the desired gene is present here, the desired gene is present here. This is a depictive diagram, so when you capture this image in a gel documentation unit, it will also give you a representative picture like this. So this is how out of such a large 4.6 megabase pairs in case of E. coli or 9 megabase pairs in case of some of the Rhodococcus strains, you can still figure out the desired fragment which contains the gene of interest. So from this you can actually fish out that, look, this is the place where the gene is located, which is somewhere between 3 to 4 kb. Let's say 1, 2, 3 and 4, so it's between 3 to 4 kb. Now the next question is, okay, from this 4.6 megabase pairs, you could actually pinpoint that the gene is located between 3 to 4 base pairs. Now how to isolate the gene, because you want to clone the gene, right? So for this purpose, what is done is, you run the gels in duplicate, right? So what we do is you run the gels in duplicate. One gel is transferred, other one is not transferred. Okay. Now what we do is that, is this clear, class? Everybody is quiet?
Ma'am, it is clear. Ma'am, I was asking like, what is the order of like electric field we apply there? Like, in normally like we apply 100 and 200 voltage. Like in that case, there won't be so much heat.
Right, so for transfer actually we use constant voltage, but then we use like 200 milliamperes to 400 milliamperes current.
So how much heat will be generated? Like,
How much heat will
okay. so that DNA will be damaged, like.
Yes, so
So
DNA.
like 5 to 10 degrees Celsius will not affect so much, right?
Huh? Say it.
So
Okay.
I'm saying like 5 to 10 degrees Celsius of temperature change will not affect so much DNA.
What temperature will not affect DNA?
Like DNA is 35 degrees Celsius to if it changes to 40 degrees Celsius, that will not affect so much.
No, that will not be. It is heated up. I mean, you can feel the heat. I mean, when you will touch it, you will feel that yes, it's quite hot. It gets heated up. Huh? एकदम मतलब you can actually feel the heat by your hands. So that is why it is. I mean, whenever it is performed, you need to put an ice pack. That's it. Or I mean dry ice packs are used. So these are available commercially. You just put it in the buffer and then try to do it. I mean, this is to ensure that everything is all right in your experiment. You will get some results, but then to get like 100% accuracy, to be sure that yes, you have performed the experiments with all precautions and under ideal conditions, then it has to be done under cold conditions. No heating.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. What about others class? Following or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So then we were discussing like how to isolate the gene. So for isolating the gene, we perform Southern blotting, but in this case the gels are running duplicate. One gel is transferred and the other one is not. So after that, what will happen is the gel which is transferred, okay, so you imagine that the gel on the left is the one which is not transferred, okay. The gel in the middle is the one which is transferred, developed, and then you got the image, okay. So you have on the left one is the agarose gel, on the middle one is the membrane, right? Now what you can do is you can align the two images, right? And then you can see that okay, lane number 3 and 4, lane number 3 and 4, and then with approximation what we do is we cut the gel piece from the agarose gel, cut the agarose piece which corresponds to this size from the agarose gel. So this experiment you will be doing in the Mall Bio lab as well. You will be cutting the gel. You will not be doing Southern blotting, but at least you will be cutting the gel. So one gel is transferred, the other one is not. Now what you do is you the gel with the developed, right? Align the gel with the developed membrane. Cut the gel at the third place. So here what I mean is whichever lane corresponds to whichever position. So for example, lane 1 and 2 are blank, lane 3 and 4 have two bands here. So that means you are going to bring the membrane in close proximity and then cut the band from the agarose gel with some approximation, right? And then, right? And then what we do is that this is called as gel elution. So that means you elute the desired DNA fragment of the gel. Okay, and this method, this technique is called as gel elution. So these days, class, gel elution can be done by multiple methods. Elution is a method of eluting DNA or RNA or protein from the gels. You can elute the DNA from the gel. And why do we elute the DNA? You want to elute the DNA because you want to use that DNA for cloning it in a plasmid, right? Right? So this is now isolating. So this is the step, Rajneesh, like you were saying, capillary electrophoresis. So by capillary electrophoresis, you can detect it but you cannot isolate the gene. So that's the point I'm trying to make over here, that by gel elution you will actually get the desired gene. It may contain 2 or 3 other fragments because it's a smear, and when you are cutting it, then you may cut some bands from the top, some bands from the bottom, but still it will be quite a small number. So therefore you need to now obtain the gene from the gel, obtain the DNA fragment from the gel. So this can be done by multiple methods. So first method of elution is something which is called as freeze-thaw method. In freeze-thaw method, what is done is the gel is cut, right? The gel is cut and placed in a and frozen at minus 20 Celsius. And then what you do is take it out and then thaw. That means crush the gel into pieces and again freeze, again thaw, repeat this cycle, mince it again, vortex it vigorously, and then centrifuge it. Many a times what people do is that, so this is the method which you will be using it in your mol bio lab as well. So many a times what people do is they place a small tube, for example a 0.2 ml tube, a 0 ml PCR tube is placed inside a 2 ml tube. And what you do is the gel is placed in this 0.2 ml tube. Done is the gel is placed in a 0.2 ml tube, and in the tube you make a hole, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is you're creating a column. So this is exactly what you will be doing in your lab. You will cut the gel, place it in a 0.2 ml tube. Now the 0.2 ml tube should have a hole in it at the bottom. This tube is now placed in a 2 ml or 1.5 ml tube, right? Now you put it in the minus 20, allow it to freeze, mince it, crush it, then thaw it, and this you do it a few times and then you keep it in the centrifuge. So as a result of this, what will happen is the agarose particles will be retained in the 0.2 ml tube and the DNA will pass through the small hole and it will be collected in the 2 ml tube. So this hole is made with the help of a pin. Like you can use a simple awl pin which will create a tiny hole and it will allow only the DNA to pass through and the big crushed agarose will be retained on the 0.2 ml tube. So this is how the solution that will be collected in the 2 ml tube will actually contain the DNA. Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes.
agarose will be in liquid form, then how it will not pass from that hole?
Right, so you will find that agarose will be, so because you will be performing the experiment at room temperature in the labs usually. So when you will freeze it, right, and then when you will thaw it, so during this process, this agarose will solidify. So what you crush it and then you allow it to centrifuge. So during this process, only the liquid part will contain the DNA and the agarose particles will solidify. So agarose usually solidifies at room temperature, right? So every time what you will see is that you are crushing and mincing. So the DNA will keep coming in the solution. Some of the DNA will be retained in the agarose. So it's not 100%. So any of the elution methods are not 100% efficient, but you can get like 70 to 80% DNA eluted out without any difficulty. All right.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, but I still didn't understood like that. How did that hybridization happens? There like there is a strand of DNA which contains gene, and I have
Yes,
a probe, and I have a
yes,
probe, and now
yes,
I put that probe on this on that membrane
right,
to hybridize and see that where is the gene.
yes.
But how will that my probe will go towards the gene? What will drive to go towards that? Like membrane will
So,
be just solid. So how will that
yes, yes.
one strand will just go from like here to there to just hybridize? And
Yes, yes. So what is done is whenever we say probe or whenever we say the DNA, Ratnesh and all the students. So whenever we say a probe, it is not one strand of DNA, right? So you take like 1 microgram DNA as probe or 500 nanogram DNA as probe. So that means first point that you do not have one strand of DNA, but you have a large concentration of DNA, right? Probe is always added in excess. So usually people use like 500 nanogram to 1 microgram of DNA just to ensure that probe is added in excess. Point number two, whenever we are performing hybridization, this hybridization is performed in a buffer, right? And this buffer is actually called hybridization buffer. So the probe is actually added to what is called as a in liquid, right? So the membrane is soaked in hybridization. Membrane is soaked in hybridization buffer, right? So and this is done overnight, I told you. So during this overnight hybridization, this is put in actually a roller, right? So you imagine that you have a roller is like a, so you imagine that you have placed the membrane in a water bottle. Everybody has seen a water bottle, right? The bottle that we use in fridge, something like this, the
oh,
bottles,
yes, ma'am.
right? So you put this membrane in a water bottle, right? And this water bottle will contain the hybridization buffer, which will actually contain the probe of interest. And this water bottle is now put in a roller, and as a result of this roller, this water bottle will keep moving so that every segment of the membrane comes in contact with the hybridization buffer. So this is how we ensure that by adding probe in excess. Number two, by giving enough time for hybridization, which is usually overnight. Number three, by putting it in a roller. Number four, by putting it in a water bottle kind of bottle, wherein you ensure that in the roller every segment of the membrane gets in contact with the probe. Is it
Yes,
clear?
ma'am. Now I understood now what will happen.
Okay. And once it is done, you take the membrane out and then you do UV cross linking.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So, and the illusion is clear. Gel
Uh,
use,
yes, ma'am.
or you were thinking about hybridization only?
No, ma'am. I understood it also.
Yes, everybody in the class followed gel illusion.
Yes, ma'am.
चलिए मैं मेरे students लग रहे हैं. Okay. Method for gel illusion is using agarose. So agarose, as the name itself says, it is an enzyme, right? And this enzyme can digest agarose. Agarose enzyme can digest agarose. So many a times people also use agarose, which can digest agarose, and this can be followed by phenol chloroform treatment. In fact, in the first case also, when you have obtained the DNA, right? And if like Ratnesh was asking ki if you are worried ki agarose is likely to be present, even if it is present in traces, it's going to inhibit further restriction digestions or further processes. So in this case, if you are worried, you can in fact again treat it with phenolchloroform. So phenolchloroform treatment that I'm mentioning here is going to be exactly same like the way we did in genomic DNA isolation. That means if you have a 500 microliter of the DNA solution which was collected in the 2 ml tube, right, or 500 microliter of the DNA solution obtained by treatment with agarose, then you are going to mix equal volume. That means you are going to add 500 microliter of phenolchloroform, where phenolchloroform is present in 1:1 ratio. You remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Chloroform is actually chloroform is to isoamyl alcohol in the ratio of 24:1. So you can use either the conventional freeze thaw method, you can also use agarose based method. These days there are column based methods also available. So gel extraction kits are commercially available, right? So people also use Kaizen columns for extraction. Another method is also there, which is called electroelution. So you can do electroelution as well, and this would require a little more detail. So maybe I will discuss electroelution in the next class. But just to tell you a few things before I tell you electroelution. So when we do class freeze thaw method, right, or when we use Kaizen column or gel extraction kits, right, or when we use agarose, so all these methods, they usually work for smaller DNAs, and you can get the yield of DNA is quite good. But whenever we talk about larger DNA fragments, right, very large DNA fragments, then you will find that the yield is not that good. So for the simple reason that agarose is anyways not the preferred method, because with agarose you will be doing phenolchloroform, point number one. Point number two, the DNA is entangled because it is too large in size, and when we treat with agarose, then agarose is, in case it is not completely removed, because the DNA is too large, the yield will be very poor. When we use the conventional freeze thaw method, this method also works best when the DNA size is small, right? When we use gel extraction columns, it is good enough for DNA which is less than 10 kb. The moment it crosses bigger, like more than 10 kb, then this is not the method of choice. Electroelution is one method which works for all sizes, for small fragments to as large as very large fragments. So we will be discussing the details of electroelution in the next class, and then hopefully if we will have time, we will also discuss DNA fingerprinting. So hopefully southern blotting and hybridization is clear to everyone, and hopefully gel elution you people followed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and if you have doubts, feel free to email me. And I have uploaded all the lectures and the PDF of the research paper on Moodle, and I will be uploading the videos on Impartis.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if there are no more doubts,